Namah Shriyati-Rajaya Vivekananda-Suraye Satchit-Sukha-Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine Swamine Tapaharine. Namaste again, pranams. So we are continuing our discussion, and in the previous session we discussed about how the knowledge of Ayurveda was transmitted by sage Atreya to his disciples, and how this whole transmission was inspired by compassion to the whole of creation. Atha maitri para punyam Ayurveda punarvasu Shishepyo dattavan shadbhya sarvabhutanukampaya. So that sarvabhutanukampaya is the key highlight here. So this has been continuously, you can see this word getting repeated again and again. And today also in the portion that we are going to cover, we can see that same concept being repeated again. Sarva bhuta hitaishina, sarva bhuta anukampaya, sada bhudeshva anukrosha, sarva prani bhayankaraha. So there's many people asked about sarva prani bhayankara. It was there in the question, and a few of you could not agree that sarva prani bhayankara is actually indicating this one health. So I thought instead of replying in the WhatsApp, I'll also explain it a little briefly here today. So the concept of one health today is not really driven by compassion. I won't say it is driven by compassion. Because this idea of one health is still because for human survival we are doing it. We have realized that we have reached a point where if we don't consider animal health, human health, and environmental health together, the future of the planet is very insecure and not sure. So this is coming from a existential viewpoint. But when our rishis talked about Bhudadaya, that we did not have this threat of total extinction, their concern was purely out of compassion. Today, sustainable development goals, everything is coming because we have learnt it the hard way. So that's why I suggested Sarva Prani Bhayankara means when we are discussing about diseases, that there is the cognizance of the pain that all the creatures are undergoing. Sarva Prani Bhayankara. They could have said just that Manushyanam Bhayankara. No, because our vision embraces the whole of creation. That is the concept of one health. That is why Sarva Prani Bhayankara also is indicative of this approach. Because everywhere they are being inclusive. There is inclusiveness, Sarva Prani. So animal health, human health, environmental health. Everything has to come together. So that is why Tada Bhudeshva Anukrosham, equally important is Sarva Prani Bhayankara. So that fear, you are feeling the fear of all the living creatures. That is an expression of, compassion, which was the sentiment of the rishis. They wrote all this, they moved mainly because of compassion, not just due to calculations or so. So what the concept of Bhudeshanukrosham Sarvapani Bhayangara and Sarvabhuta Hiteshina or Sarvabhuta Anukampeya is coming out of compassion. But then conceptually, it is aligned with modern ideas also of One Health, which has emerged in a totally different context. It is not that in modern society we suddenly felt compassion for animals or a concern for our environment. We reached a point where we realized that if we don't care for animals and care for the environment, then we cannot exist. So that way, there is a difference between the ancient idea of Sarva Bhudanukampa or Sarva Prani, considering all of creation. That was, not with this motive of just self protection. It was the idea that we are all part of one consciousness and that health and happiness should be enjoyed by the whole of creation. So that's the difference. So, yeah, these things are very important to discuss, and most often when Caraka-Saṁhitā is discussed, we don't see Ayurveda is philosophy, it is economics, it is everything together. Anything that affects life is discussed in Ayurveda. That is why it is called Ayurveda. Unfortunately, today we are looking at it as medicine. If somebody takes some book on Ayurveda, they are only interested in knowing whether Ashwagandha can increase my energy or Brahmi can increase my memory. It is being reduced to, just a few medicines. Whether I can make an Ayurvedic paste or an Ayurvedic lipstick. This is what people are interested in today. So this whole idea of discussing the text is to show how each and every word, opens up new avenues of thought, how it cuts across multiple disciplines. There is a very profound philosophy of Ayurveda, which is completely changing our outlook on life. And so that is why these concepts are very important most often. So you can see this balance between Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyaso Jividasya cha. Lebhire paramam sharma jividam chapya nitvaram. So they are balancing both the worldly pursuit as well as the spiritual pursuit. Because if somebody goes just blindly behind the spiritual without paying attention to the physical, they go into utter darkness. Andham tama pravishati yo avidyam upasate. Andham tama pravishati yo ye vidyam upasate. Avidyaya mrityum tirtva vidyaya amritam ashnute. So again I am seeing a question. So it is addressed directly to me, so I am opening it for everyone. Can this connection between compassion and Sarva Prani Bhayangara? So Sarva Prani Bhayangara means that using that very term Sarva Prani, I had explained this when we talked about it also in a previous class. The word Sarva Prani is inclusive. It shows that the rishis were concerned not just with human suffering, but the suffering of the whole of creation. So, because of compassion, they are not able to speak of only the human problem. They have come to discuss a problem, and the way they define the problem is they are not telling that this is a human problem. They are saying that this is a problem of the whole of creation. The whole of creation is gripped in fear. That is how they assess the problem. So, naturally, their solution that they are looking for is something that can solve the problem of sarva pranis. Because in the problem they are accommodative. I hope this is clear. Piali Biswas, you had asked that. Is that clear now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Wow. So you have repeated. I'm sure you have clearly understood because your answer is also echoing, and you can see today there is a discussion about the echoing of uh, the teachings of Atreya, which was codified by Agnivesha. So we'll come to that now. I'll share the slide in just a minute. Yes. So I hope that Sarva Prani Bhayangara is clear to all. So let's now look at the verses that we will read today. So we know that there was a discussion between, the Guru taught all the Shishyas equally. So there is no favoritism. See, all these small things are highlighted here. A Guru is never having any favorite disciple. Everybody is equal to the Guru. But so Buddher Visheshas Tatrasid Nobadesha Andare Mune. A good teacher gives the same opportunity to everyone. All of his or her students get the equal chance. So the difference is the intelligence and the effort on part of the student. At no point is a guru having any partiality towards any of his or her disciples. So here it is said Agnivesha became the first person to write the treatise not because he was the favorite of his guru. No. Buddher Visheshas Tatrasid. Agnivesha was definitely much more intelligent. बुद्धेर विशेषस्तत्र आसीत् नोपदेशान्तरं मुने मुनेः न उपदेशान्तरम् आसीत्. There was no difference in the teaching. Everybody was given the same opportunity. This is a Gurukula. Every student is given equal attention, equal opportunity. And then they are made to express themselves, and the really deserving person comes out with flying colors. So what happened? Tantrasya karta prathama agnivesho yato bhavat. And here you can see it is a very balanced outlook. The Gurukula atmosphere allows for individual skills to be expressed, but not by downgrading the others. So you can see here Agnivesha excels, but then others also follow him eventually. So the whole goal of education is not to categorize people into the performers and totally non-performers and eliminate them. The people who are slow learners are also made to perform eventually. So all the disciples of Atreya eventually excelled and created their own treatises. And Agnivesha was leading the way. That is the whole idea, that the best student should be able to become an example for the teacher is only a facilitator. He's just allowing things to happen and grow organically. So everybody was given an opportunity, and Agnivesha, begins to develop his skills and much more efficiently, effectively than others, because Buddher Visheshas Tatrasid. So he became the first person to write a textbook. And this is student-centric approach to learning. The student is made to write the textbook in his name. But then what happened to others? They were not failures. Atha bheladayas chakruhu swam swam tantram kritanicha. Now the Bhela, Jatukarna, Parashara and Harita and Charapani did not feel offended. They did not feel jealous. So they are also very good disciples, very good learners. They looked at Agnivesha as an example, and they also followed suit. Adha bheladayas chakruhu swam swam tantram kritanicha. So we have to interpret and study, because every single passage is not just a storytelling. That is a problem with a lot of modern translations. We don't get the takeaway message. Every verse has a takeaway message. So I've seen many translations today just saying, oh, this is the story. This is just a story. Atreya taught his 6 disciples, and one person, was the first to write, then others wrote, and then it was, read before. So this is a very literal translation that does not, there is, because it's a textbook like Caraka-Saṁhitā is written very carefully. It is trying to convey very deep meanings, and there is a message. It's trying to tell us how we must approach learning, how should teaching learning happen. So adha bheladayas chakruhu swam swam tantram kritanicha shravaya masuratreyam sarshi sankham sumekasa. So Agnivesha is celebrated because he became the first person. So just a second, just a moment. There's been a small issue here. Yeah, I'm sorry for that interruption. There was a small electrical mishap here. Yes. So I hope this point is clear. Atha bhelades chakru. So Agnivesha excels, and then the others also follow suit. So the whole process of the Gurukula training was to enable the students to unfold, and one student becoming example for others, and one student enabling others also to perform, and not actually downgrading them and saying that they are failures. There was no failure. Everybody becomes a success here. Atha bhelades chakruhu swam swam tantram kritanicha shravaya masuratreyam sarshi sankham sumetasa. Again, each one of them gets an opportunity to place and present their work, their composition of the text before all the rishis. So Atreya has created a whole peer team to listen and advise the students. Sarshi Sankham, Sumethasa. So they are all Sumetasaha, having developed their skills and intelligence, So, Shrutva Sutranam Arthanam Rishaya Punya Karmanam Yathavat Sutritamiti Prahrishtasthenu Menire Sarve Evas Tuvanstamscha Sarvabhuta Hiteshina Sadhu Bhudesha Nukrosha Ityuchair Abruvan Samam Tam Punyam Shushruvu Shabdam Divi Devarshaya Sthitaha. So now this whole process of this transmission is being celebrated, because the transmission has become successful. When the knowledge is transmitted from the teacher to the student, it is a matter for celebration, because the parampara continues. For the teacher, it is like even the continuity of life, the continuity of knowledge is established. So, having presented this before, so a lot of Visheshnas are used here. Sumedhasaha. So, Medhas, they, they need to have well developed intelligence and skills. So, that is what is mentioned here. And they have done, they are Punya Karmana, because they have done a great meritorious act. So, they are called as Punyakarmanaha, Punyakarmanam, those who have performed the, a very high and meritorious act. Yathavad Sutritamiti. So that is the key point, that they have achieved this, Sutrana. Yes, Srihari is asking, it's a very good question. I mentioned in the beginning itself that only Bhela Samhita is available to us in some bits and pieces. Even none of these works are today available, including Agnivesha's work, which was actually restored and recovered by Charaka. That is why Caraka-Saṁhitā today is known as Agnivesha Tantram. The original work was Agnivesha Tantram. Similarly, there was Bhela Tantram. So Bhela Tantram has come to be known as Bhela Samhita, which means what even the Bhela Samhita we have today is not the original Bhela Tantram. Because here Swam Tantram Kritanicha, the original name of the books was Agnivesha Tantram, Bhela Tantram, Harita Tantram, Charamani Tantram, Jadugarna Tantram, Parashara Tantram. But those tantras are all lost in the flow of time. But Agnivesha's Tantra, probably because of the brilliance of Agnivesha, he was able to capture and present the teachings in a more enrapturing way, in a more engaging way. So his book became a little popular. And so when all these texts were lost, Agnivesha Tantra was reconstructed by Charaka and Dridabala. So Bhela Samhita is still available in bits and pieces. It's not fully available, but already many new ideas and theories are there in Bhela Samhita which you cannot find in the existing Caraka-Saṁhitā. So this is a bit matter of concern, that we seem to have lost a lot of knowledge in the flow of time. And I think the entire knowledge of Ayurveda that was composed by the disciples of ACARA is no longer available to us. We can be happy that at least the skeleton has been preserved. It is up to us now to flesh it. And even a lot of modern information that has come in the field of anatomy and other things, we can add all that and enrich the body of Ayurvedic knowledge. It's just the cell skeleton, the seed has been preserved. A lot of it has been lost. Like for example, in Bhela Samhita, there is a description of differentiation of retina and the visual cortex, Chakshur Vaisheshikam and Buddhir Vaisheshikam. Two types of Alochaka Pitta involved in vision is mentioned. It is not seen in any other Samhitas. Bhela Samhita very clearly talks that circulation is happening. It is that kind of explicit description of circulation is not seen even in the Caraka-Saṁhitā. The Bhela Samhita is clearly distinguishing that heart is not the seat of the mind. The seat Shirasta Alvandaragadam Sarvendriya Paramana Tatrastham Tadhi Vishayan Indriyanam Rasadiga. Heart is said to be the seat of consciousness, Chetanasthanam. Hridayam Chetanasthanam. Manasthanam is Shiras. In Caraka-Saṁhitā, this is not mentioned so explicitly. So it is very clear that a lot of knowledge, details of Ayurvedic knowledge has been lost in the flow of time. But because of this powerful oral tradition and the ability of these ancient masters to summarize, encrypt and compress the data and store it in the form of such compact textbooks, we are still able to study Ayurveda. Enough has been preserved that we can rebuild it again at any point of time, and that is the task for the future. Recovering all the essential ingredients from these old textbooks, which is like it is like an archaeological excavation. That is how I am sometimes looking at the study of these texts. You have to have the mind of an archaeologist. A lot of things, we are looking into debris already. We are looking into great buildings and edifices that were much more magnificent than what we can fathom from studying these texts. They were much more magnificent, much more grandiose, in their construction, but we have lost a lot of it. So just like an archaeologist takes the clues and reconstructs and understand what the whole is, even so we have to reconstruct the Ayurvedic texts today. Vistareti leshoktam Sangshipatyati vistaram Samskarta kurude tantram puranam cha punarnavam. This is what Caraka-Saṁhitā itself says about such an archaeological, reconstruction, or what you can say a textual reconstruction. Vistareti leshokta. Many areas we may need to give more elaborate descriptions. Samshipatyati vistaram. What is too elaborate has to be, summarized. Samskarta, the person who refines an existing textual tradition. Samskarta kurude tantram, puranam cha punarnavam. Such a samskar. This is from the Caraka-Saṁhitā itself. So, that is the spirit. We are now looking at the Caraka-Saṁhitā like a Bible, as if every word is to be believed and there is nothing more. Caraka-Saṁhitā itself says, Anuktartha Jnanaya. This book is written in such a way that Swanumana Yukti Kushalanam Anuktartha Jnana. It is not blind belief. It is giving you the light. Dishanaya Sheshamahis Apis Swayamuheta Buddhiman. Na Shastra Matra Sharano, na Cha Nalochidagama. The Caraka-Saṁhitā was not created to make us slaves to an intellectual thought process. It was created to liberate us into the freedom of independent thinking. Swayam Kriti, Swayam Alochitava, Alochya Kriya Marabheda. So this is all the advice that you can see here. So all those concepts you can, find here. So yathavat sutritamiti, that is very, very important. When the transmission happens, that you can see also Brahmana hi yatha proktam Ayurveda prajapati jagraha nikhilenadavu ashvinautu punastada ashvibhyan bhagavans chakra pratipede akevalam. So everything is happening yathavat. Brahmana hi yatha proktam jagraha nikhilenadavu pratipedeha kevalam yathavat sutritamiti. So you can see everywhere this emphasis is made that the transmission has to be lossless. Nothing has to be lost in this process. So that is the whole teaching process. So when nothing is lost, it doesn't matter whether it is Brahma speaking, or whether it is Indra speaking, or whether it is Agnivesha speaking, or whether it is Atraya speaking. The teaching is complete. It is enriched. Every time it is transmitted, there is nothing lost. It's only enriched. Maybe more information comes. So Charaka says, keep adding as the transmission goes, make it richer and richer, so that you can boldly say, Yadhi hasti tadanyatra, yanne hasti natatkutit. Agnivesha kride tantre Charaka prati samskride, Yadhi hasti tadanyatra, yanne hasti natatkutit. So it has been enriched. It has been transmitted in a lossless manner, and it summarizes the most update knowledge of that time. Now many centuries have passed since the Caraka-Saṁhitā got updated, and it will take some effort on part of the new generation of Ayurvedic scholars and clinicians and physicians to reconstruct the Caraka-Saṁhitā again, so that we can boldly say Yathavat Sutritam. That is the big challenge of the new generation of aspirants of Ayurveda. So Shrutva Sutranam Arthanam Rashaya Punyakarmanam Yathavat Sutridamidi Prahrishtasterumenide. So they became so pleased. There was a stringent peer review process. If you do a research and write an article, it is submitted to a process of editorial and peer review. So here Atraya himself and his teachers are the editorial reviewers, and then we have the peer reviewers in the form of other rishis, the most eminent, thought leaders of that time. And they all sit and very meticulously. Anybody, Srihari is asking, are we allowed to edit the Samhita? Any Tom, Dick, or Harry can edit the Samhita, but it won't be accepted. The Samhita was already edited. I have been repeating it again and again that this is not like a biblical transmission, the original word and then nothing to be changed. No, Ayurveda never believed in that. Na shabdarubasya ayurvedasya nityatvam. Artharubasya ayurvedasya nityatvam. So Shrutva Sutranam Arthanam Rashaya Punya Karmanam. It was continuously edited. Only now we are not editing. We are simply swallowing. That is a very modern trend. We think it is something written in golden letters which we cannot, change. Of course, anybody cannot. You need to have a deep knowledge of Ayurveda, and there is a process of editing the Samhita. So, such people who edited the Samhita were called as Samskartaraha. Sampuranam is another process. Padashuddhi is another. So much methods have been mentioned on how to edit the Samhitas. So, I hope that is clear. Yeah, see, in all Ayurveda, so this is a question by Kalyana Krishnan Shankar. Is it not rare that all the main disciples of Atreya wrote their own tantras, whereas in other Shastra it's mostly as a Guru Shishya Parampara. In Ayurveda, it is always like that. If you look at Sushruta Samhita, if you look at Kashyapa Samhita, everywhere the Shishya Parampara, the Shishyas are improvising, writing, codifying, and then it gets refined and further edited. That is a whole process. At some point of time, this stopped. And that has been the death knell of all the knowledge traditions in India. People started simply becoming worshipful of the previous writings without trying to experience it themselves. See, what a Shishya has to do is to bring to experience. That is the meaning of the word Veda. Sattayam vidyade veti jnane vinte vicharane. Vindade vindadi praptau rupa bheda videyamihi. So the word Veda is coming from four roots. Sattayam vidyate. So Veda denotes reality. It is not imaginary. What exists? Sattayam. Veda means it's knowledge of something that really exists. It's not an imagination. It's not a speculation. So it is extremely real. What is reality is being captured by the Veda. Sattayam vidyate vedi siddhyate veti jnane. So Veda is the conceptualization of the experience of reality. This is what the Guru does. Sattayam vidyate. The Guru experiences reality and conceptualizes it. And what is the function of the Shishya? Veti vinte vicharane. The Shishya has to do vichara of this teaching, of this jnana. So the Guru experiences and transmit it. That is the real question. PVS Kumar, what you have mentioned is that do we have such an understanding of the text? So we do not have people who have experienced. So if you cannot edit the text, you can write a commentary on the text. That is the next best thing you can do. Like for a long time, we couldn't have editors of the text, so we have had commentators. Commentators elaborate on hidden meanings. They know that they are not fit enough to edit the text, so they write commentaries. But even to write a commentary on a Samhita, you need a lot of deep knowledge. So why it is not happening? Because even like the course that we have done here, thanks to the initiative of the Swamijis at Ramakrishna Mission, we are trying to, go deep into the text. So unless such engaged learning of the text is there, we may not be able to create a future Samskrita of the Samhita. We may not be able to create future Vyakhyadas of the Samhita. So what is needed is text-based learning has to be encouraged in the educational curriculum, even of Ayurveda. So such attempts are being made. The NCISM is planning to bring about some changes in the curriculum which will engage, which will encourage, such learning in the teaching of Ayurveda. So hopefully, so the first step is not editing the text. It is about learning the text deeply. At least that should be done. Without even reading the text today, you can study Ayurveda without reading the original Sanskrit text. You can answer in other languages and become a Vaidya. So you may not have even read the Samhita once completely, and you can still become a Vaidya. That is the current educational system. And in such a situation, how can you expect to even edit? So I would say first step is Patha of the Shastra. After Patha, you have to do so. There is a clear indication who can write a Samhita. After studying the Aptobadesha of the Shastra, Aptobadesha Jnanam, you get theoretical knowledge of the Aptobadeshas. Then you have to verify it through your Pratyaksha and Anumana yourself. Pratyaksha Anumana, Tata Pratyaksha Anumanambhyam Parikshopa Padyade. After doing the Pariksha, you get Vijnanam. So when you study Aptobadesha, you get Jnana. When you verify that Aptobadesha through your own Pratyaksha and Anumana, you get Vijnana. So first you must get Jnana by studying the text properly. Then you must experientially verify it using your own observation and inference. Then you get Vijnana. And after you get Vijnana, you have to translate that into practice. It's called Yukti. Vijnana alone, Vijnana is that curd is having these properties. That is Vijnanam, and you have verified it. But where to use curd, where not to use, and how to apply it in a patient, that is called Yukti. So this today we call it as translational research. Translating the knowledge into applications that will benefit people. So when you have applied it also as Yukti, now the Shastra lives through you because you have the Jnana, you have the Vijnana, and also you have the Yukti. And when you mature in this Jnana, Vijnana, and Yukti, when you reach a certain stage, now you can become a Grantha Karta, or you can add something. That is the only point where you can do some new, either depending on how deep your knowledge is, you can give a Vyakhyana for a Samhita, or you can write a small text yourself which is supplementing the Samhita. Many people wrote Prakarana Granthas like that. Or you can also edit a Samhita. That editing of a Samhita happens. Some of your mics are on. Can you please switch off your mic, please? Those who are Sundarya. Okay. So that is a very important question what PVS Kumar has asked. Editing of Samhita, so let me conclude. The editing of Samhita is definitely allowed. But before that, we have to get the qualifications to edit a Samhita. And the first step is to read a Samhita very carefully. I still feel like I am a baby, still understanding. So I would never personally even think of editing, but I would like to spend more time reading and understanding the original text. And if at all I am able to give some tippanis and observations on what I understood, that itself I think would be a good achievement. It is for the future generations. Somebody I hope will emerge as an editor and update it. And all these efforts, collective efforts, changing the educational system, bringing more emphasis on text, may all enable to create a future editor of the Caraka-Saṁhitā. But there is no doubt that such an editing and updation is needed. Vagbhada compiled, Vagbhada was a big editor. He said, Yugana Rupa Sandarbho Vibhagena Karishyate. So he made an updated Samhita. After that, a new update has not happened. So it is high time we did that, but we have to prepare for that. So that is the thing. Yathavat sutritamiti prahrishtasthenu menire. So what they found, the arthas are well compiled. Yathavat srutva sutranam arthanam. They looked at the not just the writing, but how well the meaning has been preserved. And so through that rigorous peer review process, they all said this is accepted. Your writings are accepted. Prahrishtas tenumenire sarva evas tuvenstamscha sarvabhuta hitaishina. So again, this whole thing has happened. So as I was telling, the word Veda means the Shishya, the Guru experiences and then conceptualizes. Vinte vicharane, the Shishya has to do the vichara and vindadi prapto. He should also obtain the same experience. So the whole Vedic cycle begins with the experience of the Guru and ends with the experience of the Shishya. If the Shishya doesn't experience the Shastra, then there is no Guru Shishya Parampara. That is a failure. There has been no transmission. Unfortunately, for many centuries, this transmission has become partial and partial. And today, mostly only concepts are conveyed and some words are conveyed. Shishyas are not able to get the experience. And that is why they are most of the time not having that much faith also in Ayurveda. So Ayurveda was an experiential Shastra. So it could be, I think it is surprising. I have not looked at other Shastras. If you look at Sushruta, all his Shishyas wrote books. Sushruta, Upadenavan, Aurabra, all. Vagbhada's Shishyas did not write Samhitas, but they wrote commentaries of his work. So all the Shishyas were encouraged to elaborate and also contribute by themselves. So we must look at other Shastras also deeply, what was the tradition there. But if you look at the word Veda, the Guru experiences, conceptualizes, transmits his experience in the form of these concepts and writings. The Shishya does the vichara of those writings. Veti vinte vicharane. And he does the vichara until he also obtains vindadi praptav, until he obtains the same experience that the Guru had. At that point, what is really transmitted is the experience of one Guru to his Shishya. And then that Shishya becomes the Guru for another Shishya. So it is the experience that gets transmitted through the parampara, not just, a collection of words or a samhita. They are only the tools to convey the deeper experience. So Atma Vare Drashtavya. Shrotavyo, Mantavyo, Nididhyasidavyascha. So the goal is that Drashtavya. You have to actually experience it. So the teaching has to be so powerful that the student can do the vichara and get a personal experience. It is not Atmavare Drashtavya. So for that Drashtavya to happen, to experience it, Shrotavyo, Mantavyo, Nididhyasidavyascha. By listening to it, by thinking about it, by internalizing it, we also become capable of experiencing. I think that is a very important aspect of the Indian learning tradition, and it was extremely experiential learning. It was the experience that was transmitted from the teacher to the student. Now we have a very nice celebration. So every time today we celebrate convocation and all that, but I doubt whether it is in the spirit. We have our celebrations. We, have all those colors and lights and sounds. We do celebrate the convocation ceremony. So here we can see a natural convocation ceremony happen. The students who completed the study did not just appear for an exam. They had to actually write a samhita to show that they were capable of transmitting this knowledge. So it was a much bigger test than what we have today. So they had to, go through this ultimate test. And after that, Tam punyam shushruvu shabdam divi devarshaya sthita. The whole nature rejoiced in this convocation ceremony. So as a natural, celebration. The devarshis in the heavens also heard this. this applause of the rishis, of the work of the Shishyas of Atreya. Samaraha, even the gods, Paramarshinam Shrutva Mumudire Param, because this transmission, the complete transmission of knowledge is so beneficial for the whole of creation. So the whole of creation rejoiced in this convocation ceremony. This is the spirit that is conveyed. We must transmit this knowledge. The education of Ayurveda must reach such a very high level of, engagement, that when the students receive this knowledge, the whole of creation should rejoice, saying, Aho, Aho Sadvidi Nirgosho, Logan Streen Anvanadayat. Today we have microphones and we make a lot of noise. But here we have the voice, the Nirghosha. There was a huge resounding sound which is soft also at the same time, saying, Aho Sadhu. Oh, the most beneficial thing has happened. The most righteous thing has happened. The three worlds, it echoed across the three worlds. This is a very beautiful narrative showing us how today we must do a convocation in this spirit. It's not just a few people get a degree and become professionals and get a job. Your knowledge is going to benefit the whole of nature. The education should be such that not we should rejoice, but nature should rejoice with us. The whole creation should rejoice. Nabhasi snigdha gambhiro harshadbhudai rudirida shivo vayur vavau sarva bhabirunmilita disha nipedu shajalaschaiva disvya kusuma vrishtaya. So nabhasi snigdha gambhiro Nirghosha, Snigdha Gambhiro Nirghosha, not the kind of harsh, high decibel sounds that we make, in a partying mood, which damages our hearing and makes everybody, unsettled in their minds. This was a Snigdha Gambhira, a very unctuous, very deep sound that emanated from the skies, from the whole world. Harshadbhudai rudirida. This was, expressed with great exhilaration and sense of wonder. So this is how the transmission of knowledge. So here the textbook is telling this transmission of knowledge should indeed be celebrated because it has happened perfectly. Shivo Vayur Vavau. There was a very nice, auspicious breeze, a gentle breeze. Sarva Bhabhir Unmilita Disha. All the directions, you can create all the lightings you want. Let all directions, we are doing all this artificially today. In all directions, there were lights. The lights, everything lit up. Bhabhir Unmilita Disha. Because of the light, all the directions became visible. Nipedu Sajalaschaiva Divya Kusma Vrishtaya. And there was a whole, showering of flowers, wet petals. Athagnivesha Pramukhan Vivishur Jnana Devata. So this is a description of the convocation that happened. Agnivesha Pramukha. Agnivesha and all the other disciples of Atreya, in them, the Jnana Devatas, the deities of knowledge actually entered. That is what this whole process is describing. So it is by their knowledge that the whole nature is rejoicing. Everything becomes lighted up because these disciples have now become empowered with the highest knowledge. And what are those Jnana Devatas? Buddhi, Siddhi, Smritir Medha, Dhriti Kirti Kshamadaya, Tani Chanumatanyesham, Tantrani Paramarshibi, Bhavaya Bhuta Sankhanam, Pratishtam Bhuvilebhiri. So these texts, these writings, so when you study a text in ancient days, when we did not have printing and internet, now we can just open, the internet and read these texts. Hardly anybody will read it because it's so easy. In those days, every student had to write in a palm leaf and make a copy of the text because one copy was not available. Every time the students studied, new copies would be created. That is how the text, we have many manuscripts available today. So every student would completely write down the text. It's a laborious work, and in that process, they learn the text more deeply. Today, we don't even take our pain to read these verses because they're all available on print. Whenever I want, I can have a look at it. But in those days, it was a precious treasure. A grantha was a precious treasure. You can see how it is covered in wooden, covers, and then it is tied and put in a silk cloth and preserved so preciously. Today, we have lost that sanctity of the text because it's easily available. We throw it out, we delete it, we print out books. They're all available very, very easily. If one book is lost, we have another book in print. You can buy a new one. So they wrote, this is how that knowledge was preserved, and they became embodiment of learning. So they attained the highest buddhi. All these skills, buddhi and siddhi. Buddhi is their intellectual. Siddhi is they are skillful also. So buddhi and siddhi go together. Sanjoy Mukherjee, could you please mute your mic? So buddhi and siddhi should always, it's not that they just became, they developed buddhi, which is intelligence. They also had siddhi. They were also practically, they had that success. They could treat. They were intelligent and they were also skillful. Smritir Medha, they had memory and they had also abundant textual knowledge and learning. So both, the memory is of no use unless they remember what is really necessary. Granthavadharana Shakti, that is what is Medha. So they used that and they remembered and intelligently understood. So Smriti is to memorize the text, Medha is to understand the text. So they memorized and they also understood. They were intelligent also, they were skillful. Dhriti Kirtihi. So they had very good self control. They did not use this knowledge just for their personal gain. They could control themselves. And yet they became very famous. So this is what is mentioned here. Usually to get fame, we may try to flaunt our skills, make use of it quickly to gain recognition. They did not do that. In spite of that, they obtained all the kirti that is needed. Dhriti kirtihi. They were self-restrained, but still, they were recognized. So this is a very, very important concept. You can see these pairs, Kshama, Daya. So they were powerful. So in Raghuvamsha it is told, Daya Shaktau. When you have Kshama Shaktau. So when you have the Daya is all the more great when you have the strength and power to destroy someone, still you do not do that. Jnane maunam, kshama shaktau, tyage shlakha vipareya. This is what the Raghuvamsha kings had. Jnane maunam. They were extremely jnanis, but they did not try to display their knowledge. Kshama shaktau. They were very powerful. They could destroy anybody in the wink of an eye. But Kshama, they showed mercy, they showed compassion. So that power, in spite of being powerful, and their Kshama translated into Daya. They were extremely compassionate. So these collection of all these qualities is what makes you eligible for convocation. This Jnana Devata Vivishuhu, does this really happen when a convocation takes place? We conduct some exam and say we have passed. But are we ensuring that the entry of the Jnana Devatas, these qualities, are they really blossoming in the students? Only then they are. So tani chanumatanyesham tantrani paramarshibhi. So having gone through this peer reviewing process, the great final examination, Bhavaya Bhuta Sankhana. These texts became established in the world. Pratishtam Bhuvi Lebhire. They became established in this world. For what? Bhavaya Bhuta Sankhana. For the welfare of Bhuta Sankha, for the entire collection of living beings. All the categories of living beings. So you can see that sentiment again and again repeated. Sarvabhuta Anukampaya. In today's narrative, you can see Sadhu Bhudeshu Anukrosha, Sarvabhuta Hiteshina. Then again, Bhavaya Bhuta Sankhara. At least 3-4 times it is being repeated again, reminding us that all this process of teaching and learning and transmission is for the benefit of the whole of creation, for the benefit of life. Literally, that is why we call this as Ayurveda. So this is the process of how the convocation of the first students, perhaps, of the medical tradition of Ayurveda happened, and how this is so beautifully narrated. We can read it just like a simple story, or if you read between the lines, you can see that there are so many takeaway messages that we can get, which if we start implementing in our educational system today, we would definitely make a big difference. So just to summarize, Buddher Visheshas Tatrasi Nopateshandare Mune Tandrasya Karta Prathamo Agniveshyoto Bhavat shows the impartiality of the students. And at the same time, the possibility of brilliant students not being suppressed. Brilliant students, everybody gets equal chance, so nobody has a complaint when one student excels the others. So the teacher is now sure this is just because of his merit, not because I was. The teacher is so meticulously impartial. Everybody gets the same chance. So when one student excels, it's purely due to merit, not because of any other. This is something which really needs to be implemented in our educational system. There is so much of frustration among students due to favoritism and other things. And, I don't think we have imbibed this value in the modern education system. This is so meticulously described here. And then, just because one student becomes brilliant, it doesn't mean the other students should be rejected. I was happy to hear that the CBSE this time is not releasing a merit list of who is better than the others. After a point, it doesn't matter. Making unhealthy competition between the students. So you can see Bheladaya Chakruhu. Even though Agnivesha becomes an example for them, not a competitor. Agnivesha leads the way. So it is put into a healthy, competition, that because Agnivesha achieves it, his other colleagues are not rated as failures. They look at Agnivesha as an example, and so the student who excels becomes a role model for the rest of the students. And they say, if Agnivesha has done it, then we can also do it. And they all do this. So this is the takeaway message. This is the way, when you keep reading this text again and again, so many such suggestive meanings. That is the beauty of the text. In the Sanskrit, composition, you can see so many such suggestions. Anuktartha jnanam, Many things in the Shastra is not mentioned directly. Why it is mentioned like this? To awaken our intelligence. If everything is told directly, Paroksha Priyava Ivahi Deva. Our acharyas are Paroksha Priyas. They don't like to tell everything so directly because they want to awaken our intelligence. So, in that way, if we start reading the text carefully, then I think even though Caraka-Saṁhitā we can say is outdated, it needs an edition and an updation, but it's still very, very much ahead of our times. There's still many, many things from the Samhita, if which we, not only in the field of medicine, but in the field of education, in the field of spirituality, philosophy, economics, you can see here in the Caraka-Saṁhitā that appears to me at many times as potent solutions also for the ills of modern civilization. But with that, we conclude. Our time is up for today. Namaste.
स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। रामकृष्णाय ते नमः।